Welcome to School and Around, a podcast hosted by Branching Minds, featuring prominent leaders, subject matter experts, and thought innovators with their perspectives on the current challenges facing K-12 education. I am your host, Larissa Napolitan, a former teacher, instructional coach, and a member of the Branching Minds team, here to lead conversations and to shine a light on phenomenal educators and those that are on a mission to transform our schools and the lives of students. I am excited to share that we have launched our 2024 listener survey, and we can't wait to hear from you. All you have to do is simply click the link in the show notes, answer a few questions, and you'll be entered into our end of year giveaway. Your insights are invaluable as we plan episodes for 2025, ensuring that we continue to deliver great MTSS content and engaging guests. Now for today's episode. Today, we are looking ahead to 2025 with a mix of optimism and practical insights. As school and district leaders, you are balancing more on your plates than ever. So let's talk about what's worth carrying forward and what maybe needs to be left behind in 2024. And today, we're just going to sit down with Maya Gat, our CEO and co-founder here at Branching Minds, to share some big hopes, bold ideas, and a little bit of real talk about what the future of education could look like. Welcome, Maya.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, and I know we've had you on the podcast before, so I'm glad to have you back. But let's start out with just maybe a little bit of reflecting and kind of looking back on 2024 and from some of your conversations with district leaders and educators and even things that we've talked around here around Branching Minds. What are some of the big challenges that educators have faced here in 2024 that maybe you hope that we can kind of move past?
Great question. Always appreciate this time of year when asked to reflect back, because I feel like life is a bullet train and it's so hard to take the time to think back and synthesize and analyze how the trends of what we've seen. I feel like largely the work has not changed. I think the work continues to be exceedingly hard for educators and administrators. I feel like the work continues to be really fragmented across all of these innovations and solutions that we all have available to us now. I think that the student needs continue to be really pressing, right? Around literacy, mathematics, attendance, behavior, mental health, wellness, like all of these things continue to be really big, important, and daunting challenges for us to address, and needs of students for us to support. I feel like the thing that when I think back to 2024 and what's different about 2024, what stands out about 2024, I think about from a district perspective, a lot around budget uncertainty, which makes the bets that we take and make on innovations and change and how we're going to solve these various problems riskier, right? Because teachers regularly complain about, rightly so, the sort of initiative overload and the whiplash of, my district bought this new solution, it'll be gone before the year's out. We can spend so much time learning something new, it'll be gone before the year's out. And when you have so much budget uncertainty, it becomes even more worrisome that districts can't provide the continuity to sustain the things that they bet on for change and for positive outcomes. So with the ESSER cliff and ESSER funds going away, I think that is a very pressing, it's like gasoline on the fire, right? Of trying to find solutions to all of the problems that persist. And I think that similar to how it is with a student in a particular class, to any student who's struggling with anything, the longer you spend in struggle, the harder the problems become to solve. The more complex, the more interconnected, the more the problems snowball. And I think that is very, very true with systems as well, right? So you have problems with engagement in your classroom. You have problems with your core curriculum that results in problems with attendance. You have problems with attendance, it results in problems with your engagement in your curriculum, right? These things are all interconnected, and sort of finding the thread that you're going to pull on to be able to solve for these problems becomes really, really tricky. And so that added gasoline on the fire of not feeling confident that you can sustain whatever thread you're pulling on as the way that you're going to have that to affect that change, or that you're going to be able to get the buy-in of your staff to do that work,
Yeah.
stands out. I think the other aspect of that is honestly the political landscape. I feel like
Ah.
this year has been very, very uncertain as to how things will play out, as to who will be the leader of this country, and what the sort of and I'm not trying to get political on this call. I'm not on this podcast. I'm not trying to come in with any position or stance or to upset anybody in any way. I just feel like the uncertainty of it
Mhm.
all continues to add complexity in sustaining solutions and change, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So those two things stand out to me when I think about 2024. The other piece of it is on the tech and innovation side is we have come so far with not necessarily even the ability of technology to solve problems, but the acceptance of it, the willingness for
Mm.
districts to receive those advancements within protocols and processes and regulations, right?
Yeah.
The race to be ready to leverage the efficiencies of AI, uh,
Mhm.
and all of what people think of as AI, which is not necessarily AI. Like whatever
Yeah.
that category of AI means to folks.
Yeah.
So leveraging technology to find these efficiencies and advancements in the way that we do work.
Yeah, I mean, okay, there's a couple things I wanna talk about that you mentioned. First of all, I do think that there is that level of uncertainty about what the future holds. I tend to be a glass half full of, like, thinking optimistically about what 'cause believing that there's potential in all that we do as educators. Um, but I know that uncertainty moving forward is really hard to, as district leaders, thinking through of just like, how do I help my staff navigate through uncertainties? How do we help, even just our community or our school board, navigating through those uncertainties? And so I definitely think that that's a big part of coming off of 2024 and even going into 2025 is just thinking about that uncertainty. And a couple weeks ago we talked about I talked with somebody about funding the work of MTSS, funding the work of school improvement, all of that stuff. And, you know, that my guest really just said it's time to get creative and like really like you're at this point of having to like think differently about how you prioritize, think differently about the complexities, like really sort of getting down what is the most important work that we need to do, and how can we prioritize that. And so I do think that there's a lot of that going into 2025. It's like there was a lot of uncertainty in 24 and then there's still a little bit more uncertainty coming into 2025. But I think that what I've noticed is that there is this level of, well, in the uncertainty there's possibility, right? There's what could we
Sure.
do, you know um and I think the AI, sort of like the technology that's now available, also like helps in that uncertainty of like, oh, but what is possible? And so thinking about what's possible, I would love for you to maybe talk a little bit about, are there any inspiring success stories that you've encountered this year from our district partners? Like, and maybe how have those kind of helped shaped our vision sort of moving forward into 2025 for Branching Minds and even just for yourself as a leader?
So I think about the current moment we're in, where every ed tech company I know is scrambling to come up with what their AI solution is, and every vendor out there I know. I mean, we're constantly being marketed for the vendors that we work with, what their AI solution is, or how they're going to use this new technology, how they're going to use machine learning, how they're going to use the LLMs. Like it's everybody's looking for their angle, their way in. I think that you know, branching minds, the idea for branching minds came to me in the year 2007, way before this was all in vogue and in trend and what everybody was trying to figure out to do, because I was aware of the existence of these technologies, and I thought, well, that could really solve my problems, right? If there was a way for me as an educator to navigate what to look at quickly across large volumes of research, to understand how to find trends, to be able to understand why my students are struggling and what I should do about it, to have that sort of expertise guidance by leveraging this large knowledge base. Now, the technologies were really different and applied in very narrow, much more narrow settings, right? But I was thinking about just even things like WebMD's symptom checker at the time, right? Of like these expert systems of guidance through expert systems, or the way that Amazon or Netflix were using recommendation algorithms, like really nascent compared to what we can do today. But like the application of it was obviously going to be an accelerant. Like I wanted that to exist, but there was no infrastructure across districts to receive it, right? There was no product market fit around it because it was just, it was not a thing that they understood how to legislate around, how to regulate around. There's just, we're talking about education is these are large bureaucratic systems that rightly so need to figure out how to legislate and regulate to make sure that children are protected. And obviously, the educators are protected, right? Large union operations here meant to slow everything down to make sure that everything is done safely and effectively, and that takes a lot of time, and that takes a lot of socialization of these technologies. It takes a lot of normalization of these innovations for people to be actually ready to receive them, use them, deploy them without it feeling like Big Brother, without it feeling like scary, without it feeling like it's the robot revolution that's going to supplant us from
Yeah.
our own homes, right? So I think that what I've seen, what in answer to your question of like what are the bright spots that I've seen and sort of success stories, is I've seen that as Branching Minds is leveraging these technologies to drive efficiencies and innovations and better practice, the districts that we talk to are hungry for them. The district leaders are saying, don't bring that to that district, bring it to me. I want it first. That there is not this sort of this culture of concern and reservation and cautiousness. I mean, yes, they want to do it rightly, but they already have the infrastructures in place, or they have their arms around how to build it such that that is not a barrier anymore to the adoption of these kinds of innovations. And I feel like that is really encouraging. It took a long time. It's almost 2025. So 2007 to 2025 to get to this point. It's pretty rad. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish it was faster, but that we're here now is pretty rad. And so I think just from that perspective of like teachers wanting these innovations in their classrooms, district leaders wanting to be the ones to bring them to their teachers, the sort of just the acceptance of the desire for these innovations, as opposed to knowing that they exist but not wanting them. It's not like 2024, these things were newly created, right?
Yeah.
A matter of them developing and evolving and seeping into the world of application of education technology.
Yeah. As you talked, it made me kind of think about, I entered the classroom in 2009, and, technology, and I entered into a district that had smart boards, and like that was cutting edge of technology at that
Was
point.
I never got one. Bitter. Sorry.
But I remember in my undergrad program, we had a like technology for education course. And at that time, that course was so outdated for the technology that I was experiencing as a senior in college. And so then when I entered the classroom, there were still things that were outdated for what I was consuming and using on my own. And it was always a struggle to sort of push forward in getting the kinds of technology that I wanted my students to be able to use, because I was like, there has to be an easier way to do this. Like having a laptop cart that you move around to lots of different classes, like there has to
The
be an easier
Elmo?
way. The Elmo,
The
like I still
Elmo.
love the Elmo in some ways, but like I think that there had to be easier ways. And so I think that like really thinking about, you know, teachers deserving that kind of cutting edge technology so that the students that they have in their classrooms are able to either use that technology and move forward and be on the cutting edge because they're, a part of like the next generation, or even just that like teachers do really hard work and deserve things that are going to make their job easier and more efficient and just like lighten the load, and I think about that a lot of just like it's exciting to hear that districts are like, yes, we want that. We want the cutting edge. And it's good that they're and I even think about hearing about districts that are already doing the work to sort of, have their regulations and their board policies around the use of AI or around the, they're already moving in that directions instead of like being 5 steps behind that. I think like that's a great thing to see.
My call it my grad school course on technology and education was how to create a PowerPoint.
Oh
Cutting edge.
man.
Cutting edge.
Cutting edge. There's, I remember, I feel like I also, there was a young teacher, I think I was like 5 years in, and there was this new teacher, and she was like that was when Canva first came out, or like maybe it was 10 years on, I don't remember, but she was making these beautiful slides on Canva. And I was like, oh, that's, those kind of things. It's just fun to see all the different ways that technology has changed. So I'm kind of going to shift it a little bit, but I know that in past conversations, we've talked a lot about what it means to be a teacher. And, now more than ever, teachers, their job is really overwhelming, to say the least.
Yep.
Right. So maybe talk a little bit about why you believe that Branching Minds' mission and what we're doing is extremely relevant to some of these challenges that we've talked about.
Yeah, man. I wish it wasn't. I wish that things had gotten easier. I wish that some of these problems had been solved. I mean, when I founded Branching Minds, it was very reticently because I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted someone else to have solved this problem, these problems. I
Yeah.
wanted someone else to have done these things for me. I mean, the conversation in 2007 was me going to my grad school professor and saying, PowerPoints are great, but where's the online solution that helps me understand, all of the research to know why my students are struggling, what I should do about it? Where's that program? To which the answer was that does not exist, right? Like I wanted someone else. This was not the path I wanted for myself. I did not envision this or have what do people have? Those vision boards. I didn't have a vision board with this on it, but it's, it is incredibly needed. And I think, my perspective was that it had to be a teacher who eventually brought this to bear, because it's a teacher who feels that pain most acutely of all of the things getting in my way of doing what I'm here to do, which is help kids, right? Like I shouldn't have to spend all of this time trying to find and access and interpret the data in order to then know what to do, to then be able to then create the plans that then I can then implement, right?
Yeah.
Like there's just the documentation, the making sure that we're all aligned. Like there's so many elements of it that, I know it's not a real word, but I think it should be, are frictitious.
That's a fantastic word. And I was thinking that, it's funny, I've had many conversations in this last year with educators and our district partners about, the MTSS work, the trying to meet the student needs. Like still in 2024, there are binders being passed around with data, or there's filling out spreadsheets in lots of different ways. And like, I think the thing is like, man, there is, to have a solution for that for teachers and for educators is fantastic. But I wish that it still wasn't, that way. Like that even just like the work to do the right thing can be so overwhelming. And so I just feel like it's so relevant to the
Yeah.
work that we're doing is really relevant, even just around the idea of MTSS supporting that best practice for districts, because it, making that process easier is such a needed thing.
So one of the things that we did in the past couple of years that where it was a game changer for us is we brought in a new chief product officer who had an illustrious career in technology in many verticals that were not education. and I think to your point earlier on about like the education community getting things five years behind, being 5 years behind, or having or not being considered or thought of or or these solutions designed for us, there's just this sort of this sort of disrespect that,
Mm,
that educators ultimately in America often feel, right? We're
yeah.
not paid highly enough. We're not respected enough. We deal with so much. We burn out so often. Like it's hard to stay in education in America.
Hmm.
My husband's Turkish, and in Turkey they have a Teachers' Day. It's a celebration of educators, and they have educators are highly respected and like just a completely vaulted up profession in Turkey. But in America, it's
A little
a little
different.
different,
Yeah.
a little different. And so, I think that that one of the things that, in 2007, I was not dreaming new technologies. I was thinking, why aren't those technologies that exist in other verticals? Why aren't they being applied in education? These
Yeah.
things exist. Why can't we have them too? Why can't we have nice things? I want nice things. Why am I on like an MS-DOS experience on a green screen with like a clicking icon when like everybody else has this beautiful graphic design or the Canva, right? Like, why can't we have nice things?
Why is Clippy still helping me?
Is Clippy still my only help, my only hope? And so we brought in a chief product officer who came from different verticals, and one of his immediate assessments was these are solved problems in
Mm,
other verticals. Like fintech, financial technology companies don't have these problems. Right, the barrier to be able to ingest data sources from all of these disparate places, to be able to see across data, to centralize data, like these are solved problems in other places.
yeah.
And so I think about that in this moment in time of like, we need to be learning from, pulling in, leveraging advancements from other places and receiving them in education with open arms.
Hmm.
And that's part of the bright spot of what I see happening now.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're thinking that direction. It's great. I'm excited for our audience to sort of hear you talk about this because I think often we don't, as educators, we use lots of different technology, but even just like understanding sort of this motivation of like, we want to provide really great technology for educators because they deserve it and they, and they need it too. I would like to talk a little bit about just even, and we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about AI, but like thinking about the things that hold promise for 2025 that maybe we're doing here at Branching Minds. Like, what are you most excited about that in as we've stepped forward into 2025 for the work that we're doing?
I mean, our roadmap for this year is the actual delivery of everything I had ever envisioned for this company, for myself as a teacher, for what I wanted to be able to provide to the community of educators and the students they support across the country. So I'm pretty amped. I'm pretty excited about what's to come. I mean, I think that is partially because of our evolution as a company, our growth as a company, our ability to invest in those resources and build out those solutions. But I think it's an equal part about the market's receptivity of that, or the sort of district's readiness to be able to implement and adopt those kinds of things. And so yesterday at our MTSS Summit, we just launched our meeting assistance solution, which the meetings that happen in an MTSS practice are sort of these pillars of the work, right? When people come together to identify who are the students who need support, to create the plans for those students, to check in on how those plans are doing, that those are all happening in these meetings. And so, all the research on meetings is that meetings are extremely expensive in
Yeah.
any company, right? You've got a group of people that you're paying to be together for a period of time. You've got the opportunity cost of what they're not all doing during that time. In school
Hmm.
districts, you often have to pay for a substitute to go sit with that class so the teacher can be in that meeting, right? And so these meetings become these really important sort of pillars of the work, right? That the work rests upon. And so we focused first on how do we leverage AI? How do we leverage these advancements to be able to improve the quality of those meetings, improve the ability for people to show up ready to talk about students' needs in those meetings. And so, one of the things that was so hard for myself and for many educators was being able to prepare for those meetings, to look across all of the disparate data that we have, to understand what has happened, what hasn't happened, how's it gone, all of those different insights. Often required looking in lots of different places and then being able to synthesize it all somewhere else.
Yeah.
Maybe in my head, potentially, sometimes, depending on how much coffee I've had. And so on Branching Minds, we now have a solution where you can schedule those meetings, invite people to those meetings. You schedule them, you invite those stakeholders, and those stakeholders immediately can receive a summary that looks across all of those data sets for you and says, here's what's gone on for this learner. So that you can just show up ready. You don't have to spend that hour trying to figure that all out. Again, with that opportunity cost of what you could be doing with that hour for every kid that you're meeting about, supporting students directly, or just like taking a beat for yourself as an educator.
Oh, I know. I talked to one educator this year, and she said that she would prepare for her meeting during her lunchtime. So, like, she
Yeah,
would not get to eat lunch and have to be preparing, like, eating lunch while she's
100%.
preparing for meetings. And that is probably almost every other educator across the country has done that at some point or is doing that currently in this moment.
100%. And teaching is hard work, and it's important for us to have a minute to take a beat so that we can
Yeah.
recharge, so that we can be ready to pour out from our cup again, right? Like
Yeah.
to refill that cup so we can pour from that cup. So anyways, giving people back that time. So the data from our launch, from our beta, was that people were spending 50 minutes preparing for meetings, and now with this meeting assistant, they can be ready within 5 minutes. It's a significant amount of time savings. But then in the meetings, to be able to have Branching Minds has a note taker that's taking the notes for you in the meeting, so that you can just be leaned in and having that conversation more fluidly. You don't have to worry about, stop, hold on, what did you say? Let me get that down, etc. And then distilling from that automatically, what are the action steps so that everybody's clear about what just happened and what we're going to do. So super excited about what that means, because there are a lot of meetings in MTSS.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I
As a
mean, I would say, like,
multiplier.
every other week I see something on this Facebook group I'm a part of, and I see it of like, "Hey, what do you do about MTSS meetings? What do you guys how do you help with meeting?" Like, that is a common a problem, and so, or just not even problem, but just challenge
Yep.
around the MTSS practice is those meetings, and so that sounds fantastic. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So we're looking for these opportunities to really find efficiencies for folks, to really give them back their time, to really give them back the
Mhm.
opportunity to refill their cup. And so there's a lot more things that we're super excited about leveraging advancements in technology to be able to accelerate. So you think about individual student meetings, but what about meetings for groups of students, cohorts of students? What about school improvement meetings, or looking across a district when you're having that
Mhm.
kind of meeting to understand how, what are the trends and what are the insights and what are the things that we need to be solving for at the district level, because
Yeah.
changes made there, obviously lots more efficiencies, lots more better ROI. Um, and so there's a lot on that, and time savings for teachers. There's a lot of really exciting things to come this year. I'm
Yeah.
pretty stoked.
Well, I know that I'm super excited about the meeting assistant and all of the ways that we're leveraging AI. I think there was one thing that I saw that I almost like, like, got goosebumps thinking about. I think it was the custom report builder where you can
Mm,
ask in plain language what kind of report you want. And I was just thinking about the amount of time I spent with a spreadsheet of student data, creating graphs for my teachers to be able to see the assessment data from the previous year. I mean, hours I spent in this spreadsheet. And I was just thinking, like, wow, that is huge for many people who are doing that kind of work, trying to calibrate all of that information. And so I loved it. I was excited
it's
about that.
cool. I'll tell you one more thing I'm pretty excited about that we are close to being able to release.
Ooh.
Um, it's a leadership dashboard. And so this is another thing that we've been thinking about, that so these sort of hypotheses of what are the levers of change and influence, like what are the things that will get the greatest impact. And so there has been a tremendous amount of of district leadership change, turnover
Mm-hmm.
in the past couple of years. I was talking to somebody yesterday that said that 95% of district leaders in Florida have turned over in the past 5 years.
Wow.
95%. That's a lot. So there's a lot. And right. So you have that uncertainty, that turmoil that like leadership directionality is going to create. And so we've been thinking about, well, where's the stable layer where the work actually happens? Where's the level of the layer of influence over the actual student, the work that has the closest effect to students? And we landed on school leaders, principals, assistant principals, that level is much more stable, and that level is closer to the work, and that level is in charge of a lot of still system level decisions over the work, such that they can enable their staff, they can give their staff that time, they can give their staff that resourcing, that tooling, that ability to be able to have to do the work that they're there to do, that they want to be doing, not the drudgery that they don't want to be doing. And so one of the big questions for us, we thought a lot about meetings as that opportunity to impact a lot of people, save a lot of time, improve a lot of efficiencies. And then we thought about the school leader stakeholder as somebody that we should really be building for, to understand what are their needs, what are the insights they need to have, the questions that they need to be able to answer on a dime, what are the opportunities that they can be, what can we surface for them to be celebrating? How do we help them see the bright spots in their own school? How do we help them see the discrepancies or the sort of dissonance between performance, between grade levels or between different subpopulations, to understand where they should lean in and support, right? And so there's a lot of work happening now using AI to help us understand across all of these different data sets for a school level, leveraging them to surface up what best practice recommendations are that school leaders should be doing and checking in on, in order to make sure that they are positioning their staff to be most effective in service of their students. And so they're pretty excited about
That's exciting. That is exciting. You're right. School level leaders have such a great impact on a student experience, a teacher experience, changes within school. I mean, probably you and I have both worked for different types of leaders, and we can have that insight of just like what can make or break a school year for people. So I love that. Well, Maya, oh man, this is great just to hear your thoughts and to hear sort of your perspective as a leader with, in education technology, of just giving the insight about how we can help those educators in what we do. So I just so much appreciate you being here and chatting with me
Thanks
today.
for inviting me. Thanks, Larissa. I appreciate what you do.
Thanks for listening to Schoolin' Around, a podcast hosted by Branching Minds. Go ahead and subscribe to our feed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, if you are enjoying our content, would you do us a favor and rate and review our podcast on iTunes? This helps others find our podcast and lets us know how much you love what we're creating. Branching Minds is an educational technology company using learning sciences and technology to help districts effectively personalize learning through MTSS. To learn more about us, check out our website, branchingminds.com, or follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn @Branching Minds.